Please save my baby." The rain fell in heavy sheets across the darkened street, turning the asphalt into a mirror that reflected the amber glow of streetlights. Each droplet seemed to carry the weight of the night itself, creating a symphony of sound that echoed through the empty neighborhood. Sarah Martinez knelt on the wet pavement, her arms wrapped protectively around her 3-month-old daughter, Emma. Her light blue dress clung to her trembling frame, soaked through from the relentless downpour. The baby's soft cries mixed with the sound of rain, creating a heartbreaking melody that seemed to pierce through the storm. Behind them, Sarah's old sedan sat motionless, steam rising from its hood like ghostly fingers reaching toward the sky. The engine had finally given up, just as everything else in her life seemed to be falling apart. The car had been her lifeline, her way to get to her 2 jobs that barely kept food on the table and a roof over their heads. Now, with Emma in her arms and nowhere to go, Sarah felt the weight of desperation pressing down on her like the storm. Clouds above. She had been on her way to the hospital when the car broke down. Emma had been running a fever, and Sarah's heart had been racing with worry for hours. The sound of footsteps on wet pavement made her look up through her tears. A tall figure approached through the rain, his expensive suit somehow untouched by the chaos of the storm. The man moved with quiet confidence, his dark hair catching the light from the street lamps above. This was David Richardson, though Sarah didn't know his name yet. He was returning from a business dinner, driving his sleek black SUV through the storm when he spotted the broken-down car and the figure kneeling beside it. Something about the scene had made him pull over. Despite every logical voice in his head telling him to keep driving, David had built his fortune by being careful, by calculating every risk and reward. At 32, he owned a successful technology company and lived in a world where problems were solved with money and strategic thinking. But as he stepped out of his vehicle and walked toward the young woman and child, he felt something shift inside his chest. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he called out, his voice gentle despite having to speak over the rain. Sarah looked up at him with eyes that seemed to hold all the storms of her 26 years. Her long brown hair hung in wet strands around her face, and David could see the exhaustion etched in every line of her expression. But it was her eyes that stopped him in his tracks, not because of their beauty, though they were beautiful, but because of the fierce love and determination he saw there. "Please," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the rain. "Please help me save my baby." Emma stirred in her mother's arms, her tiny face flushed with fever. The sight of the sick child sent a jolt through David's heart, awakening something he had buried years ago beneath layers of business success and emotional distance. "What happened?" David asked, kneeling down beside them, not caring that his expensive pants were getting soaked. "My car broke down," Sarah explained, her words tumbling out between ragged breaths. "Emma has a fever, and I was trying to get her to the hospital. I don't have anyone to call, and I don't have money for a taxi, and I just ... Her voice broke, and she pulled her daughter closer. David looked at the baby, then back at Sarah's face. In that moment, he saw past the desperation to something deeper, a mother's unconditional love, a strength that poverty and hardship couldn't break. It reminded him of his own mother, who had raised him alone after his father left when David was just 5 years old. "Come on," David said, standing and extending his hand. "My car is warm and dry. Let me take you both to the hospital." Sarah hesitated for a moment, studying his face. She had learned to be cautious, especially with men who seemed too good to be true. But Emma's soft whimper made the decision for her. She took his hand and allowed him to help her to her feet. David opened the passenger door of his SUV and helped Sarah settle in with Emma. He grabbed a soft blanket from the back seat, something his assistant had left there after a company, picnicked and wrapped it around both mother and child. As they drove through the storm toward the hospital, David found himself stealing glances at Sarah in the passenger seat. She was humming softly to Emma, a gentle melody that seemed to calm the baby's cries. There was something about her presence that filled the usually empty space in his car with warmth. "I'm David," he said quietly, not wanting to disturb the peaceful moment. "Sarah," she replied, looking over at him with a small smile. "And this is Emma. Thank you for stopping." Most people would have just driven by. David nodded, thinking about how true that statement was. Just a few months ago, he probably would have been one of those people. Success had made him comfortable, but it had also made him distant from the struggles of others. At the hospital, David waited while doctors examined Emma. He watched Sarah pace the waiting room, her wet dress now dry but wrinkled, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked fragile and strong at the same time, like a flower that had learned to bloom in difficult soil. When the doctor emerged with good news, Emma had a minor ear infection that would clear up with antibiotics. Sarah's relief was so profound that tears streamed down her face. David found himself moving toward her without thinking, offering a supportive presence in her moment of overwhelming gratitude. "She's going to be fine," the doctor assured them, handing Sarah a prescription. "Just keep her comfortable and give her the medication as directed." As they walked back to David's car, Sarah turned to face him. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You didn't have to help us, but you did. That means everything to me." David looked into her eyes again, and this time he saw something different. Not desperation, but hope. Not just survival, but the possibility of something more. Sarah, he said carefully, I know we just met, but I'd like to help more if you'll let me. Maybe we could get your car fixed and— Why? Sarah interrupted, gently. Why would you want to help a stranger? David was quiet for a long moment, watching the rain continue to fall outside. Because, he said finally, I think sometimes we meet people who remind us of who we used to be, or who we want to become, and sometimes helping someone else is really about saving ourselves. Sarah smiled then, a real smile that seemed to light up the dark night around them. I'd like that, she said. I'd like that very much. As David drove Sarah and Emma home through the quieting storm, he realized that this rainy night had changed something fundamental inside him. He had thought he was saving them, but perhaps they had saved him instead. The rain began to slow, and through the clearing clouds, the first hints of dawn appeared on the horizon, promising a new day filled with unexpected possibilities.